Welcome to Sigil Spotlight, and I'm going to be using oracle cards from Teal Swan's The Blind Spot Oracle card deck, and in a second I'm going to show you two cards from her deck, and I'm going to ask you to select one of them. And this card is going to indicate the blind spot that right now is coming up for you in a situation that you're in. So everybody's situation is going to be different. On each card, you're going to notice that there's a sigil. A sigil is a painted seal or a symbol that was originally painted by hand by Teal when she was in a trance state. So I'm going to ask you right now to take a moment to look at these two sigils that I've selected for you right now. I want you to really look closely at these cards, and I want you to allow the card to choose you. So you can pause the video right now to examine the two sigils up on the screen. So when you've selected either sigil 1 or sigil 2, I want you to look in the description box below where you're going to find a description for the sigil that you've selected. So if you've selected sigil 1, this is your reading. You've selected card number 43. So your blind spot is called assumptions. If you have drawn the sigil right now, you are assuming. And it just so happens that what you are assuming is incorrect. We assume things about situations based on how similar they are to a model, an example, or prototype we have already built in our minds. For this reason, assuming is a form of stereotyping. The mind works rather like a computer in this way. For example, if you meet a nice person from a particular country, you will be prone to assume that everyone from that country is nice as well. Or if you were abandoned by your father, you will be prone to assume that all men will abandon you. If we have a poor self-concept and someone starts to act distant, we will assume it is because they feel negatively about us in some way. So to assume is to take something for granted or to suppose that something is true without having any proof other than our comparison to the pre-existing model. If you have drawn this sigil, what are you assuming? What are you accepting as truth, even though it is simply an assumption? You are being called to ask and understand rather than to assume. You are being called to imagine that every person in your life and every situation is a fresh, new experience. All right, so what I want to do right now is to look at what is coming up in your shadow in relationship to this blind spot that you don't see. And also, I want to get some guidance from the tarot to help you out with what you can do about this blind spot that's coming up in your, that you don't see, and it's coming up in your shadow for you to look at. So I'm going to do that with the Light Seer's Tarot deck, and I'm going to clarify that with the Rider-Waite. So let's look at right now what's coming up from the shadow. So I'm going to ask for one card from the Light Seer's deck. What's coming up in the shadow right now? I just want one card. Okay, I'll only take one card, and that is the Tower in reverse. And I want to know what guidance the tarot can give you right now in regards to what's coming up in your shadow and the blind spot. One card, please. One card. And I have too many. Just want one card, please, and this has fallen out. All right, so we have Judgment card in reverse for the guidance that the tarot can give you. And let's take to some clarification. I want two cards for the Tower, please, from the Rider-Waite to clarify. Two cards for the Tower, please. Two cards for the Tower, please. It's giving me too many here. Okay. Two cards from... Oh, beautiful. Okay, so we got this one first and then this one after the World card. And Temperance. Temperance is in reverse. And two cards, please, for the Judgment. Two cards for Judgment in reverse. We have the Ace of Pentacles and there it is. The Lovers. Okay, so this is all about assumptions. Okay, so what are you assuming right now? Assumptions. So let's look at what's in your, what's coming up for you in your shadow first of all. Now you got the Tower card in reverse. So a Tower card comes up in reverse for your first card in your shadow. And the Tower moment for me is always about, you know, in our life, as we go through this journey of healing, sometimes whatever we're working through, we get certain red flags and we ignore them. And the universe comes in sometimes, and I've had these several times from the universe. The universe comes in and says, you know, listen, I have given you red flags and you've ignored them. And I'm going to come in with this big baseball bat and we're going to create a Tower moment for you so that you know, sort of go in the direction that I think we're supposed to be going into. When we're always going in the right direction on our journey, but sometimes we just kind of take side steps to it, and sometimes we go a bit too far out, and the universe says, no, I'm going to pull you back in here. And you know, you have these animals. You have the squirrel looking for a place to, you know, put his nuts in and these butterflies, beautiful monarch butterflies, it looks like, that are flying around, and they're probably not going to be too affected by this Tower moment. And you know, but as humans, sometimes when our Tower moments come in, we have to pay attention to them. We really have to pay attention to them. But what's happening here is, in your shadow, there's this Tower moment about assumptions, about you making an assumption, whether or not you're making an assumption about, and it's a blind spot that's coming for you right now. So it sounds like you're making an assumption about something that you really haven't looked into, and you really, or it could have been part of a belief system that we just own, or something that we've learned when we were younger, that this is just the way things are. And so we make an assumption about something, and in our shadow, this Tower moment is coming up in reverse because we're refusing, or we're in denial about this, that we need to look at this. And I mean, it makes sense because the blind spot is an assumption you're making that you don't even see, and you don't even realize that you're making this assumption. But it's a Tower moment, and that means you got to pay attention to it. And it's in reverse. And so there's a denial about it. Because, you know, sometimes when there's this kind of an expression that says, you know, people are quick to assume something. So it comes with a quickness here. Like, we're assuming something quickly, and kind of like Teal was saying, when we meet somebody and we think they're nice, well, we assume that everybody of the same nationality or anybody from the same country is nice as well. And so there's an assumption here in your life, and this is a general reading. So you can decide how it's applying to you, because it is a blind spot. So you are making an assumption about something. And, you know, the World card's coming in for you upright. And the World card for me is saying that there are so many possibilities out there for you, and yet you're making this assumption based on, you're not really looking at the facts, you're not really seeing the full picture here. So the shadow card, you know, that's coming up is that you're not seeing this whole picture right here, and you're not taking time, because the Temperance card says you need to take time. Things take time. Decisions take time. Making assumptions about something takes time. And you're making a quick assumption is what it's saying. For some reason, this particular situation is in your shadow, because what's coming up in your shadow is maybe you have certain belief systems around this thing situation that you're making an assumption about, but the universe is trying to slow you down with this Tower moment and saying, oh, no, wait, whoa, slow down here. You're making a quick assumption. You know, the Temperance card, quick assumption. There's other things that you need to look at. There's an infinite amount of things that you need to look at about this situation. And so that's the Tower moment for you. For some reason, maybe you're somebody that's quick to judge, you know, and how we are all are, in most situations, are quick to judge based on our own belief systems. And sometimes we got to take that step back and go, you know, maybe I'm judging this too quickly. And so the tarot the guidance from the tarot is, you know, comes up with that Judgment card, which is very interesting. You know, I don't invent this stuff, but the Judgment card is in reverse, and the Judgment card like this is asking us in upright is saying, for me the Judgment card is, why don't you take what you think you know and kind of look at it in a different perspective. And this is what this card, the Judgment card, asks us. You know, sometimes we judge things, but this Judgment card is saying, something from within is saying, you know, maybe you need to look at this. There's something from within that says you need to change something. You need to, you know, maybe your perspective on something, but that's blocked for you right now because, I mean, you don't see it, right? It's blocked. So how can you find out about what this assumption is, or how can you change this? What guidance is the tarot going to give you to help you with realizing, you know, what sort of belief systems you have in your head that is causing you to judge this situation or this person quickly? And the Ace of Pentacles says, well, you know, the Ace of Pentacles for me is this new beginning. An ace is always a new beginning. There's something here on offer for you. It says, well, here's a new beginning for you. Here's a new beginning to start to ground yourself. Because Pentacles are all about grounding yourself. Pentacles are all about, you know, your self-worth. And Pentacles are all about getting into your body so that you can start to find out what your own truth about you is. Because once you start to do that, so once you start to make that inward journey and getting to know, you know, the other side of you. Because a lot of times we live in our head and we believe certain things because these are the belief systems that were handed down to us when we were younger. And I think there comes a time sometimes when we're getting in a lot of trouble with, you know, our quick assumptions about people. And believe me, I've been down this road where we can sometimes be very judgy and make these quick assumptions. And that's all based on, you know, what was handed down to us. But here's a new way of, you know, starting to ground ourselves, to go inwards and start to find out, you know, who we really are. This Lover's card represents this masculine energy and this female energy. And we all have this masculine and feminine part of us. It doesn't matter what gender you are. We all have this. And it's saying that, you know, these two parts of us, and the male isn't even looking at the female in this picture, but the feminine part is looking to that higher sort of higher self card, higher wisdom, if you want to call it the universe, the source, the creator. And this card is asking us to start to ground ourselves and to go inwards and to start to get to know these two parts of ourselves. You know, the conscious part is the masculine part that lives in the head, and that's all we know. But there's so much more to us that lives in the unconscious, and that's our shadow. And so the Lover's card is actually getting to know, becoming intimate with ourselves. This is what this Lover's card is about. Getting intimate with the other side of us, the unconscious part of us that knows more about ourselves, and to try to figure out, you know, this is the part of us. Why are we so judgy? Why are we quick to assume things? Well, we have to go inwards and try to figure out, where does that come from, right? And yeah, so I hope this helps you. Take care. So if you've selected Sigil 2, this is your reading. You've selected Sigil number 44, which is called Expectations. So I want to read what Teal Swan wrote about expectations in her guidebook, and then we'll go into the tarot. So, expectations. If you have drawn the sigil, expectations are creating intense resistance in the situation you are in. You are most likely not being honest about your actual expectations. As a result, you tend to be disappointed and you are apt to be on a totally different page than other people. We all have expectations. These expectations may be conscious or they may be unconscious. Most expectations are unconscious. This means you may not know what some of your expectations are, and you may not know that you have certain expectations, even though you do. So we don't often communicate our expectations to other people, and this is equally true in relationships. We do this because we are often not conscious of what those expectations are until they're not met. And we do not often communicate our expectations because they reflect our needs, and we have been taught that it isn't okay to have needs. When we can't directly voice our needs, we often manipulate to fulfill them. We do things and say things specifically to get the desired reaction out of someone. So one of the best things that being upset in a situation is that it is the perfect opportunity to figure out your unconscious expectations and assumptions. If you have drawn this sigil, you're being asked to become aware of your expectations in the situation. Then you must decide consciously if you want to maintain these expectations or let them go. If you want to maintain them, you must communicate them to the people involved so that they have the chance to either agree to them or not agree to them. Only then you can decide what is in the best interests of everyone. Wow. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So what I want to do is to find out what's coming up about these expectations that you have in this certain situation, what's coming up in your shadow, and then I want to look and get some guidance from the tarot. So I'm going to use the Light SEER'S deck first of all. I'm going to ask for 2 cards only, and then I'm going to clarify that with my Rider-Waite deck. So I want to know what's 1 card for what's coming up in your shadow regarding these expectations that you have right now in this situation. 1 card, what's coming up in your shadow, okay? 1 card, please. That one seems to want to come out, and that is the 4 of Swords. The 4 of Swords. Okay, so 1 more card for guidance, please, from the tarot. 1 more guide for 1 more card for guidance from the tarot. 1 more card, please. Here we go. Oh, there's 2 that came out, but that's the one that popped up. So it's the 6 of Wands. The 6 of Wands. And now what I want to do is get some clarification. Clarification for the 4 of Swords, please. 4 of Swords, clarification. Have the Queen of Cups in reverse. And 1 more card, please. We have the Hierophant. And 6 of Wands, please, clarification for that, the 6 of Wands. Two cards, please. 2 cards for the 6 of Wands. This one wants to come out the World in reverse, and can't take all of these. There's one here, will come up in the 10 of Cups in reverse. All right, so let's look at what's coming up in your shadow for the blind spot that you have about these becoming aware of your situation. And becoming aware of your expectations in this situation. So I'm seeing the 4 of Swords coming up for you, and you know, this looks like an individual that's found a beautiful nest and just to crawl up in the fetal position and just rest, because the 4 of Swords, you know, when you start spinning in your head, especially this has to do with expectations, right? So sometimes we have these expectations of people around us that we want certain things to happen in a certain way, but we're just afraid to say them for some reason. Or we're afraid to hurt people, or we're afraid that's going to cause a bit of chaos and conflict. And so you have these 4 of Swords. And swords are all about your mental thoughts, your belief systems, and things that are spinning around in your head, and it's really causing you a lot of distress. And I think there's a part of you that just wants to crawl into this nest and sort of stay there and not come out, because you're just kind of tired of these things that are spinning around in your head right now, right? So you're needing some time out maybe to look at what's really going on. Where are these expectations coming from? You know, what's created this for you? What's created this conflict that you're having, this internal conflict in your head right now? So there is that coming up for you right now, where you have this, you're needing this time or something, because there's a lot of conflict I'm seeing in your head. And the Queen of Cups is coming up for you. And the Queen for me is this feminine aspect, very mature feminine aspect of herself that is very in touch with her emotions. Her emotions are for her something that, if you look at the water at her feet, it's very flowing. Her emotions flow inside in her and they flow out. Emotions are meant to flow in and out. They're not supposed to get stagnant. They're not supposed to get stuck, and we're not supposed to block our emotions. But this queen, this mature queen, who is not afraid of her emotions, is actually come up in reverse. So that tells me that I think you're feeling sort of because you got this Four of Swords here, I'm seeing that you're feeling very hopeless about the situation. And I can tell that you almost maybe, some of you maybe have been sitting this for a while, maybe this sort of depressive state, or maybe you have a diagnosis of depression, of anxiety, especially because when the Queen of Cups comes in reverse, this tells me that she's feeling very hopeless about this situation. And that's why you're wanting to just crawl in this fetal position. For me, it was always, I just wanted to crawl under a rock and not ever come out, is what I used to say to people, and still say if I get into that spot where I just feel absolute hopelessness about the situation. So there is this hopelessness, this feeling that's coming up in you of hopelessness. And then you get the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is, for me, it's, it's a real papal figure. It's sort of, it has a religious connotation to it, where here's this, papal figure that's giving out his doctrine. He's telling you how you're supposed to be obedient, how you're supposed to be a certain way. And for me, this can represent anything. This could represent, when you were younger, a certain religion that you followed. This could represent certain institutions like, school, or, even sometimes it could be, certain guidelines or rules that you're supposed to follow with your parents, from your parents. But for me, it's a real institution card, that there's something here that's coming up for me that may be religion related, where, you're supposed to act a certain way, do a certain thing, be a certain way. So this is really a card of obedience and what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. And so this is coming up for you. You have this feeling of just wanting to crawl under a rock because you're feeling so hopeless. It's almost like you don't know what to do because you're bound by this certain belief system, whether it's religious or not, but it's a certain belief system of how you're supposed to act. And so this is why you have these expectations of this person in a situation, because you have learned at a very young age, or adopted at a very young age, this is how things are supposed to be. And this is what the shadow aspect is saying, that, this is what's coming up for you. So what's the guidance here? If these are the assumptions, you have these expectations because this is, this your belief system is, this is how things are supposed to be. And so the guidance system that's coming up is the Six of Wands. The Six of Wands. This is a victory card, This is a victory card here, and she looks like she's won something. And the sixes, have this duality aspect of it in all the suits. And this is, in particular, this particular one talks about this whole idea of the duality of winning something and losing something. So she looks like she's won something. You know, she has all these hands, and you can't probably see them, but in the shadow they're all cheering her on. It looks like she's won a contest. But you know, sixes are duality. So six is what you don't see in this is, you know, these hands that are waving to her in the background there, the shadow part that is kind of waving goodbye to her. And you know, I look at that as, what have you had to wave goodbye? What have you lost? What have you lost in your life? What are you continuing to lose in your life? What have you lost in your life because you have adopted these obedience, these sort of belief systems of what's right and what's wrong, right? So we're looking at guidance about these expectations. So what have you lost? What have you lost because of having these expectations of people around you? Well, the world comes up upside down here in reverse, and the world for me is an infinite possibility out there of things. You know, when the world comes out, it means there's just so many options for you out there in any situation. But because it comes in reverse, that's quite blocked, and you don't see that, because when we have these rigid belief systems that create these expectations of how people are supposed to be, and they're not showing up for you, because we have to understand where these belief systems come from. And these people keep entering our lives so we can understand this pattern that we have about us. Because the Ten of Cups is come out in reverse here. And the Ten of Cups is all about our emotions and the wide range of emotions that we can have about situations. And this is in reverse for you. So there are a lot of emotions for you that are blocked around these expectations that you have. And we did already establish that it looks like you're sitting in a lot of futility here. So, and you know, maybe even, you know, you might have some shame going on here and feeling a certain way about things, and you know, feeling that things aren't working out for you, and you had these expectations and people aren't meeting them, and that's where the futility comes in, right? That's where this hopelessness comes in, like you don't know what to do anymore, and you're feeling like, you know, the world is sort of against you here, and it's not against you. This is what you're feeling here. It's not against you. But what this card is saying to you is, you know, you have these losses. You have these losses, and you have this range of emotion. You know, you need to start experiencing this range of emotion, but your emotions are quite blocked around this whole situation. And so it tells me that you really need to get into this hopelessness situation that you're feeling because of the expectations that you have. And that means really getting in touch with all of our emotions and really getting in touch with that hopelessness that you're feeling, and allowing yourself to grieve from that situation, and grieve from the losses that you've had around. Maybe in the past you've had expectations and, you know, they weren't met when you were younger, and this is happening again for you right now. So this is the pattern that's showing up for you that the tarot wants you to look at. All right, so I hope that helps you a bit. Talk to you later.